You wouldn't download a case. Well, actually, you can. The forum, level 1 text. Mini STX case that one of our forum members designed, W. Mary. It's the machine behind me, but I'm trying to make a joke about the name of the case. The Fractal Torrent. No, not Tourette's. No, not Torbjorn. No, not Terrence. It's glass on both sides. I can't hide my sins. Now this is actually a very interesting change of design. It moves the power supply to the top. And look, there are two enormous fans in the front. These aren't 140 millimeter. The case dimensions are 544 by 242 by 530 millimeters. It has 4 dedicated 2.5 inch drive positions and 2 dedicated 3.5 inch drive positions. It's compatible with SSI CEB motherboards, SSI EEB, eATX, ATX, Micro ATX, and Mini ITX. It has USB 3.1 Gen 2 and 2 USB 3.0 ports on the front. The CPU cooler maximum height, pay attention here, 188 millimeters. Right in the front, you've got 2 Dynamic X2 GP18 PWM fans, or 2 Prisma AL18 PWM fans, depending on what case option you opted for, but those are 180 millimeters. Now you might be thinking, because this is a high airflow, and we've got the oddball 180 millimeter fans in the front, there's not a lot you can do with custom loop water cooling. You'd be incorrect, because this is an adapter. So you can actually change the way that the fans are mounted on the front. You can move the 180 millimeter fans to the bottom and move the 320 millimeter fans to the front. And then you can use it with a front mounted radiator. You could also use it with a bottom mounted radiator. That's going to build up the height of the bottom of the case a little bit and may block a few of the bottom slots on your motherboard, but you can sort of do those options. There's options here for up to 420 millimeters of radiator. So it just depends on what you need for your custom loop cooler and that kind of thing. The top, even though the top is solid, they've had the foresight to include a fill port right here in the middle. So you can still do a custom 360 millimeter radiator, put the pump right below that, and you got the fill port, and you got all the room in the world for anything that you could possibly want to do. Now this is an interesting layout, but in order to really get to know a layout, we've got to do a build. And for this build, I've got this. This is the Fractal Ion 2 Platinum 860 watt power supply. 860 watts, you might as well call it 900 watts, right? I mean, that's basically what this is. You might be wondering, what about dust maintenance? Come on, let go. Well, look at that. You got a dust filter right on the front. And a nice dust filter right on the bottom. Look at that. Such a big dust filter. Fractal, fans as big as your hand. I gotta say, I really hope the big fans start to make a comeback, because larger diameter fans move more air more quietly than 120 and 140 millimeter fans. I liked the cases that had the dual 200 millimeter fans in the front. I really did. Remember the ancient cases that had like the 200 millimeter fan in the top? I love that too. This is a nice step forward for high airflow, potentially, without sacrificing too much in the way of noise. Now, with the glass side panels and all of the open construction here, there's no sound dampening. Other Fractal solutions, like the Define S2, they have sound dampening foam. So if you're after sound dampening, maybe check out one of those other models. This is about high airflow, but it's about high airflow with the larger fans, so you should be able to get more airflow with less noise. So that's nice. I mean, even little details, like the back here. The entire back is it's just a mesh. The whole thing is open all the way. Little details like that, high airflow. Somebody say something about a build video? What's even going on with this? Are we building? This is the fastest Intel CPU you can get. No, not that one. Not that one. 40 cores. This is the Platinum 8380. 40 cores, 512 gigabytes of memory. Useful for me to try to figure out what the heck is going on with Optane. I think I could use like 3 or 4 Optane devices and create a platform that can do 15 million IOPS. I actually tried that in the 2-socket system, running into some weird problems. So this is going to be my troubleshooting rig. This is also going to be the rig where I'm going to show you how to overclock a Xeon. Yeah, you heard right, overclocking a Xeon. Well, it's not really overclocking, but there's some things unlocked in the MSRs on the 83 Hades. And I think that means that we're going to be able to do unlimited turbo power duration. As long as you can keep them cool, you can operate outside that 270 watt envelope. But this is going to be the test platform for that. Upcoming video, get subscribed, stay tuned. If you are going to mount an oddball motherboard, or even if you're not, always double check your holes in your standoffs, because your motherboard may need to move something or it may have a hole in an unexpected place and you need to move a mount around. There have been at least a half a dozen threads on the Level 1 forum where people have built machines in excess of $5,000 and then they've had weird problems, and it's because they missed a standoff and it was shorting something out on the motherboard. They're lucky it didn't ruin their rig, so double check. Now the Torrent has one very special accessory that other Fractal cases don't, and I'll come back to that. It's a satisfying thunk, doesn't it? It's a Ziploc bag filled with one-time use plastic bags. And there's a separate baggie of motherboard screws. Okay, maybe I can appreciate that a little bit. The Fractal Ion 2 860 watt platinum. You can definitely ship this to California with that platinum power supply rating. Now in the Torrent box, it's worth mentioning the accessories. You have a Phillips to motherboard standoff adapter. So if you don't have a cool knife like mine that's got the built-in tool, you got that. You've also got extra fan screws, 3 extra motherboard standoffs if you have an enormous motherboard, and then assorted screws. These are actually technically the power supply screws. They're the big hex head on them. These are standoffs for your 3.5-inch mechanical hard drives. That type of standoff helps reduce the noise. And then you've got a whole bunch of machine thread screws for your 2.5-inch SSDs. It's a pretty good accessory package. Also, of course, lots of zip ties, but there's also lots of Velcro straps built into the case. So mostly I would say use the Velcro where you can, but the zip ties are there if you need them. Oh, and the mystery component. That's this. This is a GPU retention bracket. We're installing the MSI 3090 Supreme in this, which is the most BA 3090 that I have. And this will hold it, because this case is designed for it. And this is not a feature that's on other Fractal cases as far as I'm aware. So you just mount this in the slots and you're good to go. And the fan hub in this case is a pretty substantial upgrade. Nothing but 4-pin fan connections. You know how on previous versions of the Fractal fan hub there were 3- and 4-pin connections? This is all 4-pin connections all across the board. Now this case also has an RGB header, which I'm not going to be able to take advantage of, or can I with the Supreme 3090? But there's some hidden accessories here. See that white bar? It's actually RGB, it lights up. Commence Operation Hide Sins. Oh no, it's glass. You're gonna be able to see them. Now look at the cool little clever features. There's a screw hole right here on the top. So if you want to lock it, you totally can, right there. Even though this side's glass, you can't really see the horror show that is my wire routing. And that's one of the things I find appealing about this case. It's the 3090th of 3090s. The MSI Supreme. But what's the 3090th MSI Supreme of storage? This is the Liquid Honey Badger. But I've also got a more pedestrian, 4x4 RAID NVMe. Well, it's software RAID, but see if we can get it all in there. Installing the support bracket is a pretty straightforward affair. Alright, with a little angle bracket installed, you got this, which is rubber tipped. Thumb screws for everybody. Just a few thumb screws installed, you're good to go. Nice and sag free. Now one of the other features I'll call out about this Fractal case is the Velcro straps at the rear of the motherboard. They go all the way through the case, so you could route cables internally on the inside with the Velcro straps, but you could also use them for cable routing on the outside of your case. So check it out, this channel here, the slots go all the way through, and you could use this to tie down USB connections or network or whatever to keep your cables nice and neat back here, because sometimes if you've got a lot of cables back here, it will impede the airflow through the exit of the case. This is a really nice feature. If you're going to go with a modular power supply, put your extra modular cables somewhere in the case with the power supply, or just go ahead and hook them up and then tie off the cables. This case doesn't have a huge number of places to hide the cables because it's glass on both sides, but I still recommend you do that. Now for my build, this is dealing with a 270 watt Xeon CPU. It's really not a lot, but we are dealing with the MSI 3090 Supreme, which has a great cooling solution and can be overclocked. Between the 270 watt CPU and the 400 and some watt GPU, I'm basically at the limit of my 800 and some watt power supply. 900 watts of heat generated on the inside of this thing peak. 5 fans with the dual 180 millimeter fans in the front. Perfectly reasonable. Also perfectly reasonable sound levels. Check it out. With everything at 100%, you can hear it, but if this were, in the floor or not directly next to your head, this is pretty good. So there you go, that's what it sounds like with the fans at 100%. It's still pretty quiet. I don't think that this would be unacceptable even if the computer were up on your desk. If it's in the floor, certainly not a big deal. And this case, unlike a lot of the Fractal cases, has pretty good ground clearance for use on something like carpet. For other Fractal cases, I recommend my 3D printable office chair adapters like the Define XL2. Works great on wheels because it's so big and it really lifts it up off the ground. It can breathe really good. But this, you get a lot more ground clearance, so it'd probably work a lot better on carpet. If this were on a desk, it would be acceptably loud, except maybe if it were right next to my head at 100%. But letting everything run on auto on this motherboard where it just sort of does its own fan management, it kept the whole system really, really well cooled off without having to run the fans at 100%. So pretty good airflow. Again, that's just a data point, it's anecdotal, but this is me for my build and my experience. So I built this as level 1. This has been a quick look. This is the Xeon 40 core workstation monster. And I've got some SSDs to test. I'm pretty sure I can clear 15 million read-write IOPS on this platform, but we can also overclock it. So there's 2 videos coming up you're gonna wanna check out with this system. I'm Untitled Level 1, I'm signing out, and you can find me in the Level 1 forums.